Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining Conversations with Agapè today. We're so excited to have our special guest speaker, Dr. Ray. Right now, everyone is on mute. I will unmute everyone during the last 5 to 10 minutes of this session so you have the opportunity to ask Dr. Ray a question. But again, Dr. Ray, thank you so much for being here and sharing your insights. I'm going to turn off my video, but I'll turn it back on during the live Q&A.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Ray. The question I get asked most often as a shrink is do you have any children? Yes, I have 10, and that's why I'm in this room. It's quieter here and it smells better. Then I get asked, what have you learned? Well, I've learned something very critical. I seldom took them out in public. If you take them out in public, invariably they're going to pull some stunt. Embarrasses the heck out of you. If people know you're a shrink, it's worse because you can almost hear them thinking out loud, let's just see what Mr. Psycho Man does about this one. But I figure it this way, those of you who are grandparents especially, you know this. We get our vengeance. Now, first 9, 10 years of life out in public, they embarrass us. After that, we embarrass them. Uh, Come on, Dad, don't wear the pants with the feathers. Dad, don't wave at me when people are looking right at us, and I'm not going to pull your finger. I've been shrinking for close to 45 years. I used to be like 6'9". In that time, I have watched a tremendous erosion of self confidence, of authority, of resolve among parents, particularly good parents. Why would this be? Well, one big factor is the culture. And we're not going to talk about the culture so much today. But the other factor is huge. The longer I'm in this business, the more I'm convinced this has done a number on parents and grandparents. That factor right now is talking to you, me, the experts, the shrinks. We're everywhere, crawling all over women's magazines, all over television, radio, putting out thousands of books, articles, net message. What do you know? You're just a mom. Well, you can stumble your way along. Hopefully, you won't follow it up too bad. But if you want to do this the psychologically correct, proper way, got to be state certified, congressionally mandated, child development, rearing, psychomental, international on Oprah specialist. This is especially trapping when it comes to discipline. Discipline is by far the number one question I get from parents and grandparents. Dr. Ray, can you tell me how to discipline less? Yes, I've developed a foolproof technique for disciplining any child less. Simply do one thing. Lower your standards. Oh yeah, you get them low enough, you don't have to discipline at all. I told you, quit doing drugs in the living room. When we have visitors, we discipline because we love. Because you can't establish morals and character without it. I don't care how positive you are, how affirming, how many I messages you use, how much active listening you use, how much win-win scenarios you set up, how many sticker systems you use. Without discipline, there is no morals and character. But parents feel guilty when they discipline now. That guilt was not so much a part of parenting a couple generations ago, probably all the way back. Where is this guilt coming from? Well, they're afraid they're going to do something psychologically incorrect. They're going to make a mistake. It's going to reverberate. 22 years from now, he's going to be sitting in the middle of some prison encounter group on an afternoon talk show talking about you, Mom, and the time you left him on the pot for 4 minutes too long. You named him John because you were hoping it would help in the toilet training. Here's a simple piece of thinking that will dampen your discipline. You are the kindest, most gentle, loving teacher that child will ever have. If you don't do it now, because you feel guilty, or you're afraid he won't like you, or your mother-in-law already thinks you are the biggest she-witch to fly the face of the earth, that child will be disciplined. That's a guarantee by the world. A judge, a landlord, an army sergeant, a police officer, an employer, someone who does not love that child like you do will discipline that child, and the world will hurt. The world disciplines rough. I tell folks, discipline without love may be harsh. Love without discipline, that's child abuse. Because ultimately, that child will be set up to be hurt, perhaps even crushed by life. Now, we have grandparents listening to this. My experience is you grandparents were the last generation across the board who knew who the parent was. You parented from a mindset, I am mom, you are not. Nowadays, we got parents so skittish. The young people especially are so worried about making a psychological mistake, saying the wrong thing, doing it the wrong way, and all that does is undercut their good judgment. And keep in mind this, you want to raise a great kid. In a lot of ways, you're going to be very different than the culture. I was 3 years old when I said this to my mom. I don't like you. She looked at me. Raymond, you're a little behind. I stopped liking you last year. That was back before you could psychologically smack parents around. You know, one of my kids tells me I don't like you. So what? I got 5 or 6 who do. Any given moment, I got a 50% approval rating. There's an interesting phenomenon that occurs in my office. A parent will come in, describe a list of trouble, long, and then they'll say this. I think I'm giving you the wrong impression. Overall, he's a pretty good kid. And I'll ask, how is that? Well, he's not on discipline or he's not on drugs or anything like that. I ask my clients, what would you like looking back at you when they're 22? Now, no guarantees, but the hope. If you're content to say, well, given the way kids are turning out nowadays, I'm counting my blessings. The parole officer says one of the nicest kids he has. You probably can parent like the culture. You most likely won't have a kid not on drugs. But if you wish to look at that child at age 22 and say this, I'm not objective, but I think he's 1 in 100. Morals, character, compassion, seeks God. Are you prepared to be a 1 in 100 parent then? Dear people, you can't parent like those folks out there in that culture. They'll take you places you don't want to go. You'll supervise well above the way they supervise, and they won't understand you. You'll give out social freedom 2, 3, 4 years later than their peer group is getting it. Technological freedom 4, 5, 6 years later than their peer group is getting it. And the irony nowadays is those of you who stand strong against the social norms, against the culture that is no longer on the side of faith-filled people, you will be misunderstood. You will be critiqued. You will be analyzed. You will be second-guessed. But I've noticed, I've been at this business long enough. I've watched a lot of good parents stand strong against that culture. And the proof was in the kind of kids they raised. But the irony is they didn't get credit for it. You are so lucky. You just got good kids. I didn't get good kids. You got Chastity and Angelica. I got Chucky, Damien, Cujo, and Lucifer. Like it was the luck of the draw. At one point, my children were 12, 11, 10, 10, 9, 7, 4, 3, 2, and baby. My 10 children are all adopted. Some of you may be adoptive parents listening. The agencies don't tell you this, but I figured it out about the third kid. If you adopt in December, you still get the tax deduction for the whole year. They pay for themselves that first year. Then you start to fall behind but because they eat more. But if you cut back on the food, you can break even around September. My wife and I have had this ongoing conflict as we got more children. And ladies, I believe you will agree with me. First of all, my wife does not work for a living. Oh, wait a minute. I don't think she heard that. Actually, I've seen what my wife does in raising these children, and it scares me because I don't know if I can handle what she does. When the kids were little, she'd take them to a grocery store. I would go if I was heavily sedated, I would go. And you had to see it strung out behind her like ducks, hands down at their sides, not allowed to touch anything. They wouldn't deviate 6 inches either way out of a straight line. No, they wouldn't. Leg irons wouldn't let them. I have 3 white kids, 2 Hispanic kids, 2 biracial kids, 3 black kids. People would look at my wife. They'd look at me. Some of them were pretty bold. Is this some kind of club or something? Some of them wouldn't say a whole lot, but I could read their eyes. That major dork doesn't realize them ain't all his. I suspect her, but I can't catch her. My children have what the experts would call risk factors. Risk factor in psychological parlance is anything that would make a kid tougher to raise. Poor prenatal care, poor postnatal care, abuse in the womb, neglect in the womb, high maternal stress, low birth weights, heavy drug exposure, crack, narcotics, barbiturates, heroin, cocaine, nicotine, marijuana. Some of my kids were to be aborted, but their birth moms allowed the children to live. And we relentlessly tell the children the love of their birth mom. And we know in many cases to go against the whole circle around them to give birth to the children. Now, because of this, my children should be tougher to raise. Poor prenatal care, all those things involved could give them maybe learning problems, slow to mature, some quirkiness in their temperaments. I have a few like that. I would not consider any of my 10 children strong-willed. this kid is one kid over the line. No, I think there's a simple explanation. The strongest willed of my 10 children is not stronger willed than his mother. Strong willed, that's the number one adjective now leveled at kids. Strong willed, and its variants, of course. Oh, so defiant, so oppositional, mind of her own, 8 gone on 18, high maintenance youngster, challenging child. We have a difficult child. I tell parents difficult child's redundant. Strongest willed of my kids is not stronger willed than their mother. Do we have so many strong-willed kids out there today, folks? Because the big people have lost will. We're not as sure of ourselves. We're not as confident. So many of the parents that I deal with can't quietly say, that's disrespectful. Go to your room, please. Your night's over. They can't. Not without an argument, not without a brawl, not without coming out of the room 26 times, not without a look that says, who's going to make me? That isn't something that is good at all for the family. Now, because this is only a 25-minute talk, I cannot give you the techniques I would share to get you to have that kind of one-time, quiet, calm authority. Sorry, Ashley. However, those are all in my books if you are interested. That's not a cheap sell, but we are running out of time. Given that, I ask parents, can you do this? And if you can't, it is critical that you develop the ability to do this, because if you don't have authority, you go to confession and you say, bless me, Father. Before I had children, I was pretty nice. Now, I'm not pretty or nice. That's what happens when you don't have authority. You get ugly, you get nasty. You say things you don't want to say. In our culture, especially by the onslaught of the experts, authority has become a dirty word. Discipline, control. Think about them. Don't they just kind of have a negative psychological tinge? But they're not. They're good things. They're very good things. In the context of love, the rule of authority is if you have it, you don't use it very often. If you don't have it, you're always chasing some counterfeit form of it. The illusion of authority is words. The illusion of authority is arguing. The illusion of authority is nagging. That's not authority. When a parent says, he just doesn't listen, what they're saying is a child is supposed to be responsive only to words. And that's what the experts have many of them believe. If you just say it the right way, in the right logic, reflecting the right I message, the child will respond. Mother, I've just been so blind. I see what you're saying. That's why you're the grown-up and I'm the child. It's all so clear to me now. Let's hold hands and sing Kumbaya around the campfire. Sometimes I will tease my clients. What would your mother have said had you talked to her the way your daughter is talking to you? Oh, no, I didn't talk to my mother that way. Why? You were a teenager once. Why not? I just knew. You knew what? Something would happen. What? I don't know. Why don't you know? It never happened. Why didn't it happen? I never did it. Why didn't you do it? Something would have happened. What? I don't know. Who's on first? I don't know. Third base. You see, it's an Abbott and Costello routine, but you know what it speaks of? It speaks of the perception of authority. Remember the look? Many of you grandparents probably had the look. A higher percentage of you had the look than the younger generation. The look is gone. The look was a quiet authority. I'm prepared to act. This is a warning. And most children realized it was kind of like classical conditioning, like Pavlov's dog. You knew when the bell rang, mom's look, just settle down, settle down. Mom gave you that look. That look is pretty much all gone nowadays, and it isn't because kids have changed. Kids haven't changed, especially not the little ones. We big people, we've changed. 6 of our kids we got at infancy, 4 we got later. The twins had a wretched history. Birth mom ingested every toxin she could get a hold of. The kids were placed in foster care after Children's Services stepped into the scene. The foster parents were sweet people, but they didn't discipline them. They felt guilty. Remember what I said about love without discipline is child abuse, because the world will hurt you. The world will put a consequence on you. Certainly a lot tougher than standing in a corner. We've since found out that my son and daughter, John and Joanna, had a chance to be adopted prior to us. We weren't the first family picked. We had 4 children. They weren't looking at us. The 2 families chosen before us both backed out. Their reaction upon meeting the kids was, "Oh, thank you. We were hoping for something a little more along the lines of a child." You see what I mean, folks? That little boy and girl lost a mommy and a daddy twice. That was the real world consequence for their conduct. Why? Because the big people didn't do what the big people needed to do. And other big people looked at him and said, "Oh, no, not you. You're warped." I got to admit, it didn't look too good. First few visits there, Johnny punches me in the face, attempts to strangle my wife, kicks the foster father about 14 times during one of his fits. We walked out of there. My poor wife had developed a tic. And she said to me, "Ray, we got to rethink this. I don't think the tax deduction's worth it." I said, "Honey, 2 tax deductions plus the credits." Johnny represented something that's happening to so many of our children now. He had enough letters after his name diagnosing him. Then he had a name. His letters could have spelled another couple of names, none of which have panned out. Once he got into a home with a lot of love and strength of limits, yes, the immaturity and the impulsiveness was still there, but the kind of defiance and unruly behavior that he showed so much of in foster care dissipated. Not because we're such great parents, but because we had to do what we had to do over the course of a long period of time. My wife asked me one time, Ray, you're a psychologist. Can you figure out the triggers for John throwing a major league tantrum? I said, well, honey, let me study this for about a couple of days and I'll get back with an answer. So I came to her. I said, honey, I figured it out. I know the trigger for John's temper fits. She says, what is it? I said, he's breathing. We had a simple response. After Johnny would throw one of his eruptions, the next 5 things that he asked for, we would say, Johnny, we would love to do that for you, son, but not after a fit like that. 5 things. Of course, he'd throw another fit at that point, and then we'd have to reset the clock. We did that. We did it with some consistency. And I got to tell you, within 6 months to a year, it got better. You see the time frame we're talking about? Actually, kids will learn quicker than we grown-ups do. We go to confession saying the same sins week after month after year. We expect a kid after 4 weeks of sitting on the steps to say, I got it, Mom. Yeah, okay. Well, you won't have this problem from me anymore. Before I go, I want to share with you this. Number one referral I get is from older parents whose kids have left the faith. They're devastated, they're sad, they're disappointed. They wonder, where did they go wrong? How did they fail? Yeah, it was my spouse's fault. I wanted to pray the rosary in Aramaic, kneeling on broken glass while we levitated. No, my spouse just let him sit on the couch. Spiritual sloppiness. If you're suffering from this kind of guilt right now, I'd like to logically take that away from you, please. Just answer these questions to yourself. I'll answer them for you. Is there a God? Yes. Is Christ God? Yes. Was he sinless? Yes. Could he perform miracles? Yes. Did he have a perfect understanding of human nature? Yes. Could he get most people to follow him? No. Oh, I see, folks. You think you're better at this than the God man. Can you do a miracle? Can you even do a crummy card trick? Our Lord himself couldn't get most people to follow him, folks. Do we think we're better at this than he is? That there's some kind of spiritual formula you just failed to apply? No, you're raising people with their own personalities, their own temperaments, their own free will, and a culture that is ever so seductively skilled at misshaping souls. So you can pray for them, you can love them. But the days of you beating yourself up over this are over. My 10 children are grown. I have some may serve the church. I have some may serve time. Thank you so much for listening to me. I would like to close with this for you grandparents. A warning. Do not say this to your kids. I can't wait until you have children just like you. You remember one thing while you're firing that one off. You're going to be the grandparents to those kids. Is that what you want to babysit? Ashley, let's take some
Yes,
questions.
perfect. Well, thank you, Dr. Ray. That was incredible. And thank you for sharing your wisdom, especially with such humor as well. I really appreciate it. As I unmute everyone, can you please share with us how they can connect with you or where to even find your books?
Sure. My website is drray.com, DRRAY.com. All 18 titles are there. Parenting, I got a book on grandparenting, emotions, marriage, faith, pretty much any part of life, living, thinking like Jesus, Jesus the master psychologist. So it's all there. They're all discounted and they're all signed.
Awesome. Oh, wow. That's very cool. Thank you so much. And everyone has the opportunity now. You have access to unmute yourself. You have to click the little microphone if you wish to ask Dr. Ray a question. And then as we wait for a question, Dr. Ray, I'm going to pull one from our registration list.
Sure.
Um, One question is, how can spouses handle different and discipline techniques due to different personalities? Do you have any advice on that?
The rule is most spouses don't agree totally on discipline because you're right, Ashley. They have different personalities, they have different tolerance levels, they have different attentive levels. One simple way is to agree on house rules. Most discipline problems are repetitive. Bedtime, bad times, chore shirking, homework hassles, sibling quibbling, disrespect, meal ordeals. So establish what you want to be your house rule with your
Mhm.
consequence. So you don't have to every time think about, well, I want to do this, he wants to do that. Well, she doesn't
Okay.
think this is fair that I do that. Go to the house rule. Another rule that worked for us very well, the parent who disciplines rules. In other words, the parent who has the stricter discipline. Let's say a child gets disrespectful and mom sends that child to bed at 7 o'clock. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I probably wouldn't send her to bed till 8. Well, mom made the decision.
Mhm.
She made the rule. I
Right.
think personally, I have 5 boys and I have 5 estrogen Americans. I think personally that I would love when the boys learned to burp the alphabet at the table, but my wife didn't. So if they tried it, she'd send them from the table. Okay, it's her turn, her role. She rules.
Right.
That worked.
Right. Okay. That's great. Very good. Well, thank you for answering that. Okay, so any last minute questions before we wrap up here from anyone? I'll hang around for a little bit.
Well, if they don't want to ask a question, though, don't blame me if your kid is on Springer. You know what I mean? I did, I did my best.
You did your best. Perfect. Well, again, Dr. Ray, thank you so much for your time and your incredible insight. You were such a fun guest to have on Conversations with Agape, and I really appreciate your time and thank you so much for doing this.
Ashley, I appreciate you asking me to do this.
Oh, well, thank you. And have a great rest of your day. And thank you, everyone, for joining. Today's session will be recorded, so everyone will get a copy as well. And I will also send out Dr. Ray's contact information so you can connect with him on how to receive his books and where to purchase that. So, again, thank you so much, everyone, and thank you for joining. Bye, Dr. Ray. Thank you.
Bye, Ashley.
See ya.